All of today's stories come from the book American Indian Myths and Legends, selected and edited by Richard Rhodes and Alfonso Ortiz. This book has over 150 stories of all topics from tribes all across the North American continent. All of the stories were collected directly from members of these tribes and compiled into this book. But for now, I'm going to focus on warrior legends and stories from the Lakota. The Lakota being a dominant northern plains tribe with a strong horse warrior culture. The first story comes from a man named Henry Crow Dog, who told it in 1969 while living on the Rosebud Indian Reservation. And it's the story of his grandfather, the first Crow Dog, and how he got his name. His grandfather was a chief and was preparing to lead a war party when he had a vision of a white horse in the clouds. As a result, his horse became the fastest in the band. He also heard the voice of Coyote saying, "I am the one." Then the wind whistled between the two eagle feathers he was wearing and told him to look to a distant hill. On the hill, he saw a man who raised his arms at him, then disappeared. He knew this man must be a ghost, who was trying to warn him, but he wasn't sure why. The war party left and traveled until they reached a river in modern-day Cedar Valley, South Dakota. Then set up camp on the banks of the river and rested. During the night, he heard Coyote howl 4 times, and he knew it was a warning, and woke the men to prepare for battle. There were some members of the Kit Fox Warrior Society there, and they started to sing their war song, quote, "I am a fox. I am supposed to die. I already threw my life away. Something daring, something dangerous I wish to do." The men painted their faces black and prepared to fight to the death. At dawn they were attacked by some white settlers led by a soldier and some Crow scouts and warriors. The chief was not afraid as he had some famous and strong warriors with him, some of them being Two Strikes, Kills in Water, Hollow-Horned Bear's Son, and Kills in Sight. At the beginning of the fight, 2 Crow scouts wounded Kills in Sight and shot his horse from under him. The chief charged at them and killed the 2 crows, counting the first coup. He then lifted Kills in Sight onto his own horse and it took off, too fast for any enemy to catch. The chief, now on foot, was hoping to catch one of the riderless crow horses when he was hit with 2 arrows, one right under his collarbone and one going deep into his side. 3 warriors rode to help him, all with arrows in their own horses. The chief told them to leave him, but they would not. They got him on a horse and they all took off. They were surrounded by whites and crows and had to fight their way out. In the chaos, they lost the chief. Assuming he was killed, the war party rode home, but the chief had made it out as well. After riding for some time, the chief collapsed from blood loss, sure he was to die. But suddenly 2 coyotes approached him, saying, "We know you." They slept at his sides all night to keep him warm and brought him deer meat. They also brought him sacred medicine and taught him how to apply it. After he was healed, a crow appeared and led him home. Returning home, the people were shocked and celebrated him. After a while, he left hunting alone when he was ambushed by a war party of Pahanis, likely Paccani Blackfeet. He took 2 bullets, one in the arm and one in the ribs, but he was able to ride away on his fast horse. After a while, he got off his horse and was content to die. But again, the 2 coyotes came and nursed him back to health, and the same crow appeared and led him back home. Later, he would make a shield, painting 2 arrowheads and 2 circles on it to represent the wounds he had survived. With this shield, nothing was ever able to hurt him again, and he took the name Crow Coyote, which was later mistranslated into Crow Dog. This story is now known as 2 Bullets and 2 Arrows. The next story was told by Jenny Leading Cloud back in 1967, and it is called The Siege of Courthouse Rock. The story starts by describing Nebraska as a vast, flat, and green land that isn't what most people think of when thinking about the West. But as you travel towards the setting sun, the West, you'll find 3 great wild rocks. The first one being Chimney Rock, which was a famous landmark used by settlers traveling west on the Oregon Trail. Then you would come to the twins, Courthouse Rock and Jailhouse Rock, which are covered in yucca plants and sagebrush. A quote from Jenny Leading Cloud: "A long time ago, a Sioux war party surprised the war party of Pahani near Courthouse Rock. We Sioux had been fighting many battles with the Pahani. The whites had pushed nations like ours, whose homeland was farther east, near the Great Lakes, westward into the prairie and the hunting grounds of other tribes. Maybe the Pahani were there before us, who knows? At any rate, we were now hunting the same herds in the same place, and naturally we fought. The Pahani were outnumbered and retreated to the top of Courthouse Rock. 3 sides of Courthouse Rock are steep and go straight up and down, with the 4th side having a path to the top, which could be easily defended by a few men. The Sioux warriors knew this, and decided to wait them out, wait until they died of thirst and starvation, or until they came down to fight on the plain, as the Sioux greatly outnumbered them. As the Sioux waited, their plan began to work. The Pawnee began to suffer from hunger and thirst. There was little hope for their survival. But their leader was a clever chief, and he was determined to create a plan of escape. The 3 flat sides were unguarded as they were impossible to get down. However, there was a bulge in the rock on one of the sides, and with a rope tied around it, they might be able to climb down. The rock was much too smooth to hold a lasso, but the chief discovered that the rock was also soft. The Pawnee began whittling a groove around the bulge in the rock. The men worked only at night so they wouldn't be discovered by the watching Sioux. By the 3rd night, they were finished, and the chief tested it out by climbing all the way down and back up again, which took most of the night. But the rope was secure. On the 4th night, he told his men it was time for them to go, and they sent the youngest members of the party down first, then the experienced warriors, and lastly the leader. The Sioux noticed nothing, and the Pawnee were able to get away. The Sioux waited for days, and as they ran out of food, themselves became hungry. Eventually, a young warrior who was tired of waiting declared that all the Pawnee must be dead and that he was going to check. He climbed to the top and shouted down that there was nobody up there. Another quote, "That time the joke was on us Sioux. It's always good to tell a story honoring a brave enemy, especially when the story is true." The last story is another from Jenny Leading Cloud, and it is titled Brave Woman Counts Coup. Speaking in 1967, she says, "Over 100 years ago, there were many Sioux still living in what is now Minnesota, including a band of Hunkpapa, under the leadership of a man named His Country. When he was a young man, His Country was a fierce warrior and well known among the tribe. As he got older and retired from fighting, he became a respected chief, known for being a provider for the poor and was a wise leader. He also had 4 children, 3 sons and a daughter. His sons were eager to become strong warriors just like their father, and frequently went on war parties against the Crows. Trying to prove themselves, they fought with reckless bravery, riding along the front lines of battles and fighting hand-to-hand with the Crows. And one by one, His Country's sons were killed, until the sad chief was left with only his daughter alive. Some say her name was Makta, but later she would be known as Brave Woman. Brave Woman was beautiful, and had many young men seeking to marry her, including Redhorn, himself being the son of a chief, and a young man named Little Eagle, who was too shy to admit his feelings because he was poor and had not yet proven himself in battle. But time and time again, Brave Woman declared that she would not marry until she had counted coup on the Crows and avenged her slain brothers. Around this time, the Crow tribe was making a great effort to establish themselves along the banks of the upper Missouri River, which the Sioux considered to be their land. It was decided that a strong war party would be sent to chase out the Crow. Among the warriors riding out were Redhorn and Little Eagle. Brave Woman declared that she would be joining the war party. She put on her finest clothes and went to see her father. His Country feared that his last child would be killed, but knew that his daughter had made up her mind. He gave her his war bonnet to wear into battle. He also gave her a war horse and her brother's weapons. The war party left and eventually found a huge Crow camp, with hundreds of men and thousands of horses. Brave Woman gave her oldest brother's lance and shield to Redhorn, her second brother's bow and arrows to Little Eagle, and her youngest brother's war club to another young warrior, and told the men to count coup with her fallen brother's weapons. Brave Woman herself carried just her father's old curved coup stick, wrapped in otter skin. The Sioux were heavily outnumbered, but still they attacked. At first, Brave Woman supported the men by singing strong heart songs to bolden the young warriors. But when the Sioux began to be pushed back, Brave Woman let out her war cry and charged into the battle herself, counting coup left and right. With a woman fighting so bravely, the Sioux refused to retreat, but eventually the Crow numbers were too much and the Sioux were being pushed back again, with Brave Woman's horse being shot out from under her. Redhorn passed and pretended he didn't see her. She was doomed until Little Eagle rode up and told her to take his horse. She did, but when she tried to get Little Eagle to ride with her, he refused, saying his horse was wounded and could not take them both. She refused to leave him to die, but he took her brother's bow and struck the horse, sending it running as he charged back into the battle on foot. Brave Woman rallied the warriors herself, and the Sioux charged again, with such fury it was impossible for the Crows to hold. This was the battle in which the Crows were driven away from the Missouri for good, but many brave young Sioux were killed, including Little Eagle, cut down as he faced his enemy and saved Brave Woman. The warriors broke Redhorn's bow, took his eagle feathers, and sent him home. They then built a scaffold for Little Eagle in the place of the defeated Crow camp, and killed a fine war horse to serve him in the next life. Brave woman cut her hair, slashed her arms, and mourned Little Eagle. She asked everybody to treat her as if she were Little Eagle's widow. A quote from the book, "Brave woman never took a husband, and she never ceased to mourn for Little Eagle. I am his widow," she told everyone. She died of old age. She had done a great thing, and her fame endures.